Thank you all for being here today. This is amazing seeing so many of you guys here and giving up your evening for this. And thank you to my panelists for being here as well. So this event is just really and truly, I just wanted to unpack the power of code switching and how you can code switch and still be able to keep that same level of value, basically, and how these ladies have gone through certain things and how they have handled it and things like that. They are amazing at what they do. Clearly, that's what they are here. And I just want this to be a place for you guys to network, to get to know each other. I know that, last year was a crazy year, so, giving you back that opportunity to get to know new people and really use it to your advantage, to network and to just, be open to learn. So in saying that, I will be going around. First things first, let me introduce myself, right? So I am Naomi Lebe, the SU president, the first black woman as the SU president. I have an amazing team. They are literally amazing. I say that all the time, everywhere I go, shout out to them. And yeah, so that's me. If you have any questions, please, my office is on the first floor, Subu. I always have to promote that, okay? It's a part of my job. So yeah, we're just going to go around to ask these amazing ladies to introduce themselves and to just tell us a little bit about themselves and like what they do and things like that before we get into the questions. So
that side.
So we'll start this side with Tola and then we'll just go around.
Okay, so hello everyone. It's nice to see the faces. It's nice to be back in the room with everyone. So my name is Tola Oloyede. I am the Group HR Director for Halliburton. Halliburton is an energy services company, and I'm based out in London. What else do you want to know?
Yeah, that's good enough. We can start there. Thank you. It's amazing.
Hi everyone, I'm Dingale Kasote. I am the press officer at BAFTA, so British Academy of Film Television Arts. I hope I haven't got that wrong. I literally will get fired. And I was at Bournemouth Uni. I graduated in 2016, so coming back is like a homecoming for me. I was very emotional when I got up the taxi. I was like, how did they get this building when we had like the little caravan? So good to be back. Lovely to see you all.
Thank you so much. And to my right?
Hello everyone, I'm Lillian Galeka. I feel like I said my own name wrong, but I am a trainee manager in a nursery. I have been in childcare for coming up to 7 years, and yeah.
Thank you very much.
Hi guys, my name is Quilale. I too went to Bournemouth, so I studied public relations here. And like Dingile, it's surreal to be back. I graduated in 2013, and I now work as an account director at Ashfield Medcoms, which is a global medical communications agency. So yeah.
Thank you guys so much for introducing yourself. And the purpose for this event is just to pretty much, raise confidence. I want people to leave here feeling like, okay, cool, like I can ask this question within my organization or the placement that I may be going into, or if you're leaving uni, for you to just know what you can basically tap into your rights within the workplace and things like that. We learn new things, or I learn new things every day in terms of my rights within the workplace that I may not learn from, my parents or whatever it may be. So in saying that, I'm just gonna go around, asking everyone how they got into the role. So should we shake it up a little bit and start with Lillian?
Yeah, sure. I started in childcare through college, so I did my level 3 at college. I did placements. From my placement, I then got a job as a level 3 practitioner, and then from there I went to university in Huddersfield. I'm actually not from Bournemouth. I'm only here for work, so it's been lovely to see a lovely campus. I also, when I finished my level 6 at university, I then did, what can I call it? I worked in a breakfast and after school club, and I helped them start from basically ground up and help them build it to what it is now. I then left, came here to be a room manager, to The room capacity is 40, so in nursery terms, you don't get as big as that. It's normally like 20. I have now progressed to be a trainee manager, so within a year, I'll have my own site. I'll be a manager.
Exciting.
Wow, thank you so much. So if I just move on to my left, if you can just answer the question as well. How did you get into your role?
So I always wanted to do PR, and I came to Bournemouth Uni on a PR degree because I knew that there was like a year in placement. So because of the degree, I was able to do a placement at Disney, and that kind of set me off for where I wanted to work and what I wanted to do. So I wasn't sure that I wanted to get into TV PR, but because of Bournemouth Uni, cheeky plug, I was able to get that experience for a year. So at Disney, I was able to work across the Star Wars account and the Marvel account, and that exposed me to this whole new world that I wouldn't necessarily have access to. And then after leaving uni, I got a job at Nickelodeon, so I was able to then stay in TV, stay in kids PR, and then from Nickelodeon, I then was able to get a job at Channel 4. So I think my trajectory, I didn't plan it, but I fell into it because of the choices or the degree that I made, degree that I chose. And then after 2 years at Channel 4, I was like very blessed to be able to get the job at BAFTA. So for me, it kind of went, it was like an upward sort of journey, I guess. But it wasn't something that I was like, yeah, from when I was born, I'm going to be at BAFTA. It just, we thank God that it worked out that way.
Thank you so much. Tola?
Okay, so the role, maybe I'll step back a bit and talk about the sector I'm in. So my experience is quite different from these lovely ladies here. So I studied in Nigeria. I'm Nigerian. My first degree is actually in engineering. So I'm an engineer by background, and I spent the first 10 years of my career working on the rigs, on the oil rigs offshore, before I then moved into HR. So I guess first of all, the question is, why did I study engineering? I don't know. I just wanted to study engineering. I always liked numbers, and that was the only thing I was good at. I didn't really know anything else, so I thought, engineering was probably the safest bet. But when I graduated in Nigeria, the unemployment rate, I can't remember everything now, but I think the unemployment rate was close to 50%, right? So only 50% of graduates got jobs. So it wasn't a luxury of, I wanted to end up in the energy industry. No, I wanted to just get a job, right? In Nigeria, when you graduate, you have to spend the first year doing your national service. So I went into the national service camp, and I remember, at that then, I don't know if they still do it now, you had different employers come to give you a test. So I did the test for banking. There was a bank that came. I did their employment test. There was an energy industry. I did their test. There was every single company that came, right? It was about getting a job. Eventually, I then got into the energy industry, and then spent the first 10 years. I kind of worked around the world a bit. So I spent my first 6 years in Yemen. I did I worked in the desert in Yemen, and then I moved back to Nigeria for about 1.5 years, and then I moved to the UK in 2010. Yeah, so I took a break in my career because I had always moved around, and my husband was based here. So I thought it's probably time to come and be with the man I was married to, right? So I came here. I then thought, I got bored after a year. I thought, okay, maybe I should go to school. So I did a master's in Cranfield University, organizational performance. I thought it was really interesting, actually. And then before I left my previous employer, they had a very different way of staffing their HR department. So if you're in operations and you're an engineer, you have to go do like 18 months in HR. So while I was doing my HR assignment, that's when I left them. So obviously, doing organizational performance, and I then moved into HR, and I have not looked back since then. So everyone when I say to people, like I said to Linian, I'm in HR, people give me the, Everyone gives me that look. So yeah, so I've been in HR for the last 10 years. It's been exciting.
Wow, thank you so much. And lastly, could you just please tell us how you got into your role as well?
Yeah, I think I too had a bit of an unconventional start to my career. So as I said, obviously I studied here, and actually I didn't know what PR was when I when I came to university. I remember sitting in the lecture hall. I'm sure my lecturers won't mind me saying, and they went, yeah, so day one of PR. I was like, so what's PR? And the reason I didn't know what PR was because I thought I wanted to be a journalist. And then I got given an unconditional offer. That's the dream, right? So I was like, sure, I'll go to Bournemouth, I'll learn about PR. And yeah, as you know, the course it's 4 years, and then there was a 1 year placement year. My parents are doctors, so I wanted to do something with science, but not be a doctor. And so I heard of healthcare communications. I worked at GlaxoSmithKline, or GSK, as some people know it. And then after that, I decided I wanted to get some agency experience. So I went to Brighton and worked in an agency. And then I did a whole shift. I decided, actually, do I love science and like healthcare and pharmaceuticals? And I did 3 years in shipping, marine, energy, and offshore industries. PR, that was different. So yeah, we can probably swap notes on the energy sector. And then after that, I decided I did love pharmaceuticals. So I came back 2 years ago. And yeah, recently got promoted to account director. So I'm enjoying it. Lots more challenges, but it's interesting, it's exciting.
Wow, thank you so much. I mean, this question can really, go to anyone. I just want you guys to tell me what was your main motivation to get into the space that you are in right now. So any of you guys can go first. Don't rush. It's okay.
I'll go first. What got me into childcare? My dad was a lecturer, also an international translator for presidents and stuff like that. And then when he settled down, he was a lecturer, so then he always used to say to me, like, you're going to be a teacher. I said, no, I'm not. Then when it came to college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and everyone was like, you're going to be a teacher, it's in your nature. So then I went and did childcare, thinking I wanted to be a teacher. During that time, like going through placements, I went into a school and I really realized that it wasn't for me. So then I stuck to childcare and the younger children, and I think now it's more like I really want to put my imprint in childcare as a black woman. I want my children to go into a nursery and they'll be treated the same and know how to be treated. Yeah, I think at first I went in for the love of children and cuddles and all that kind of stuff. But then now I realise that there's actually a bigger picture, that I do want to put an imprint in childcare and to help educate the next generation.
I think obviously it's very interesting because I feel like since I've gotten to know Lillian, I've learned a lot more to do with childcare. A lot of black people come from massive families, so we don't really speak of childcare until perhaps you have your own child. You're like, oh wow, I need to pay for X, Y, and Z. And if you can't afford it, you just go and give it to your mum or something like that to look after your children. So of course, like I've learned a lot in that way. So what would you say has highlighted, or what have you learned along the way within your line of work?
What have I learned about being black?
I guess, yeah.
Supporting in that industry, how do I support?
A little bit. So I would say my question is, what have you learned in terms of, do you see enough black children, being dropped off at? And if not, what do you think the reason could be?
I think there's several reasons. You hardly see black children. I've worked in settings where there has not been a black child. My current setting does, but like I said, it's like 1 or 2. And one thing I've come to realize is the children, the parents don't have an option. Like you say, normally your auntie, your uncle would look after your children, but these parents don't have the option. So they're bringing their children, they're going to work, 10-hour shift, they'll come back and pick up their child. So I think as a black community, we don't feel secure and safe to take our children into childcare because one, we're not as educated on it. We don't know the perks. We don't know what we're going into. So I think I've come to realize that I really want to educate people that as much as you want to like save money and take them to your mom, your dad, there's lots of perks of taking your child into childcare that can help them with further education. 0 to 5 is like, to be honest, it's make or break. Those ages are like really important, and I think we have grown up with, oh, you have a child, your mum's there, she's doing nothing, just look after her. But now that I'm in childcare, I would definitely take my child to nursery because the benefits that we do, you know, I think it's not just, I'm not babysitting, I'm educating, you know, I'm starting from zero and I'm working all the way up, so yeah.
Do you mind telling us like the type of perks that you have realised within your line of work?
About going to nurseries?
Yeah.
I think the main thing is understanding, I understand child development, so I'll see a child do something that you might see a child do something and you might think, like, why are you doing that? I think an example is a child will write on the wall and you think, are you feeling okay? Like, like why are you writing on the wall? But for me, I see that as you have an interest in making marks. So rather than telling you off, I will redirect that behavior. I will take you to paper. I'll put paper on the wall, because if you do want to make marks, I want to give you that opportunity. I don't want to stop the opportunity, and I have to understand that when you have children at home, I do it with my niece, she'll want to do something, and I'm like, I have to get up, I have to do it. But when I'm at work, I understand that I'm being paid to do this, so when a child wants to do something, I will then plan an activity, and I will make sure that I extend their learning. That's something that you don't get the privilege at home, which I think that's something that I really want to help educate our community about.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And perhaps this next question could be for Tola. What else would you be doing if you didn't get into the space that you are in today?
I wanted to be an astronaut.
Nah.
Dream big. Why not?
Yeah, but I don't like flying.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure how I would have done that. I also wanted to work in that humanitarian space. I really, I loved the brand UN growing up. So I think it was more about working for UN, really, than work. I didn't know what they did really, but I just wanted to work for the UN. But now that I know, if I had an option of deciding, I think I will start literally the way I started, right? Started with engineering. I think I would have done a degree in psychology.
Why is that?
Because when I was an engineer, I didn't like HR people, right? I always struggled, what did they do? Why don't they ever respond to emails, or never, how could they be so busy? And then I moved into HR, and I thought, oh my gosh, it's easier to deal with equipment and tools than human beings, right? Now I could figure out, okay, this is why HR is a bit difficult, right? Challenging, exciting. And that's why I remain in the space. And that's why I'm still there till today.
Wow,
So I think
so
for me,
much.
I would do the same.
Thank you so much. So perhaps I feel like this next question will be great for you. So how have you been able to navigate in a space where business has or has not acknowledged racism within a workplace? So when Black Lives Matter was going around, a lot of companies wrote statements on what they would change and what they will not uphold within the value of the organization, right? So yeah, just to ask you that question again, how have you navigated in a space where businesses has or has not acknowledged racism within the organization?
I think I want to start by saying it's not always easy to navigate this space. I think part of dealing with racism in the workplace is it comes from a place of personal trauma. So there might be things that you've experienced that people are then putting pressure on you to unpack. Can you educate me on how this feels? No, I can't. It's actually traumatic for me to talk about X, Y, and Z. Or actually, the year that we've just had as Black people, but not a monolith, because I know we're not all the same, but in general, as Black people, the year that we had or the years that we've had, we're still recovering from. So by someone asking you a question, can you explain what this feels like? There is Google, can you Google, maybe Google, try and try and educate yourself another way. But I would say like the beauty of working in marketing and comms is usually that role is to be the in-between person between the brand and the public, or the brand and the stakeholders. You know, the CEO, the marketing team. You in comms, if you're in a comms degree, or just as a human, to be able to communicate what's going on culturally and personally is a skill. So I think in marketing, comms and PR, the role is to educate to a certain level, but then also to equip people to educate themselves. So for me personally, it started, I would say for me, like in terms of profession, it started when I was in uni. So on the degree, I knew all the black people by name because there was like 5 of us. So I just knew who to go to or who to speak to about certain experiences. And I didn't realise that would then translate to the workplace. So in terms of marketing, PR and comms, you don't really see a lot of black women. So I think PRs usually are, there's a thing called the typical PR person, and they've come from a certain background, or they're middle class, they've been educated this way, and they know all the contacts in the industry, specifically entertainment. So breaking into that, you then have to find your own tribe of people that can run the stories, that will have your back, that will understand your perspective. So I think it's really, really challenging to unpack racism in the workplace, but there is such an honour and a joy to be in marketing, comms, entertainment, and to be the voice that's at the table that says, that tweet doesn't make sense. Why are we putting hashtag Black Excellence when it has nothing to do with the people in the tweet? Why is there a black square? Like, what does that mean to you? And what will that mean in 2 years' time? And I think a lot of you will remember the black squares. And it was like, Instagram was just flooded with black squares, and the messaging of what the black squares were for was gone. And then I saw something on Twitter recently where someone said they didn't even know why they were posting a black square. So we're a year post what happened last year with George Floyd and all of the other black murders in America. And we're back to square one in terms of Black History Month. Like, how many brands have you seen celebrating it in a way where you feel like, that really reflects me, or I'm really excited by what they're doing? It does kind of feel like some brands have taken a step back on that and have just been like, we'll just ask the black people to rustle something together for their month. Like, what is that? That's so wild to me.
Exactly. I saw something on Twitter as well myself, actually. I can't really remember the name of this guy, but I feel like, so he tweeted saying something along the lines of, during the Black History Month, he will not work with any other company, and he said that how that the PR for that company emailed him saying, oh, this is why you're not gonna basically.
I saw that tweet.
Yeah, I think, yeah. So the PR basically emailed him back saying, I'm gonna I guess spread your name in a negative way. And for him, he didn't care about outing this company, because one thing that he said that he's glad that he comes from a family where he doesn't have to rely on companies for the money type of thing. But those black people that do, these companies are just using them as a tick box to be like, okay, cool, we'll use a black person for Black History Month. So you're not really changing anything or anything like that. So has any of you guys experienced anything similar where your company is sort of using you to be the outspoken black person, or how have you held these companies to account when it comes to these conversations? Anyone can answer this question?
I'll go, because it's happening right now, actually, and I haven't quite resolved it yet.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested to get some advice from you guys. So I got contacted by the marketing team. Firstly, I'll echo everything Dingile says. PR, communications, sometimes, particularly when you go down the corporate route, which is where I've gone and where you've gone, it can be a lonely road in terms of being the black person there. So, I worked at GSK. Those of you who might know where it is in London, there are 3,000 people there. I could count the number of black people out of 3,000. That was the first kind of eye-opener. And then everywhere I've worked ever since, you can also count the black people. The company that I work at now, they did something, because obviously the US celebrates Black History Month in February, and I was invited to chair an event. And it was really interesting because there are 300 people, and there was one black guy from London who said, I've worked at this company for 2 years, and this is the first time I've seen another black person on the call. That was me. I felt the same way. I was glad that he voiced that, because I felt exactly the same way. There are 1,500 people in my organization, and I've never seen a black person in 2 years since I've worked there. I went to an event last year, there were 1,000 people, and I was the only black person there. So it can be a little bit tricky, and sometimes you wonder, is this happening because the organization this is just the setup, or they're not trying to recruit black people? Because they do say that they're trying to recruit black people, but I'm sure you guys are all brilliant. Come and work in Medcoms with me if you like. But yeah, so I got contacted last week by the marketing director to give a quote for Black History Month and what it means to me. And I didn't reply to the email, to be honest, because I didn't know how genuine it was, where it was coming from. And then he messaged me on Teams and said, "Did you see the email?" And I said, "No." And the truth is, it was a white lie. I did see the email, but I said I've got 1,097 unread emails, which is true, but I had seen that email. I said, so I haven't seen the email. And he dropped it. I think he got the hint. So it can be tricky in that regard. And clearly I haven't handled it the best way, I don't think. So yeah, open to advice on how I maybe, say to him, I feel like I'm the poster black child whenever you have anything black going.
Have you guys experienced anything similar? Tola, Lillian, how have you guys sort of handled that? Or how have you guys held these organizations to account? Because it doesn't have to be your it doesn't have to be your current organization, of course, but like through your experiences and what you do.
I've experienced with the Black Lives Matter, my company didn't release a statement when everyone was releasing statements on how they feel, etc., etc. And when I addressed, I don't understand why we're not saying anything when childcare, we promote inclusive practice, you want to make everyone feel included, but yet when it comes to something that you need to speak up about, we're very silent, there's nothing to say. There is something to say, and then it turns into, well, what should we say, in a way of why don't you tell us what to say, what you want to hear? And I said, last time I checked, that wasn't my job role. You have a marketing team, there should be someone in there that should look into this. It really shouldn't fall onto me to say something. So for me, in a way, it's I know my job role, I know my job description, I'm happy to help, but you can't turn to me in terms of this kind of things. It's I have voiced that you've said nothing, but that doesn't mean that it should fall on me to be the voice for everyone. That wasn't my role. It then turned into, the company said, how can we make you feel included? Which they then moved on to start a group which supports minority people within the company and to make them feel included. And they turned around and had HR, head office, and all those people. And then I got involved in the process. Everyone got paid, but I didn't get paid to attend. So I was like, my time is not as valuable as your time.
Yeah.
So they then worked all the meetings around when I wasn't working.
Yeah.
So it's a way of you said there was an issue, we're trying to fix it, why are you not attending? But it was I'm more than happy to attend. The same way you're getting paid to attend, you pay me because my time is as valuable as your time.
Yeah.
So it's a bit I left it as that. And for my point of view was, I voiced it. I wasn't going to sit there quietly and just let it hush by, because even in the staff room, nobody wanted to talk about it. Everyone would be oh, have you heard? And it's no, let's talk about it. You're talking about it on timeline, you're talking about it with your friends. Just because I'm here, don't go quiet. If you want to say something, say something.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I always say is I want people at work to be vocal, because what they are saying, they're saying to the children. Mm-hmm. What you're saying to the children, I either correct you or I don't. So for me, it's I'm trying to build an open dialogue with people at work to speak about it, because I'm very conscious that your opinion affects the next generation. Mm. So as much as sometimes I'm just a bit do I want to hear it? I have to understand that there's a bigger picture. So I do want to hear it, because I now want to educate you on what you're saying. I now want to question you on what you're saying, because you are now going to go and say that to a black child.
Yeah.
And now they're going to take that and be or they're going to hear it. So yeah, that was...
So like the balance is just not there.
Being valued, then how far can I go?
Yeah.
I think it's also to put those boundaries in place to let them know that I do want to help, but just because I want to help doesn't mean that I'm going to do it for anything less.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? And that's another thing why when she said HR, it's a bit like, I'm known with HR, but I'm not known for the right reasons.
I love that. Tola, have you, through your experiences, have you been in places where you've had to like hold these organizations to account on how they are moving when it comes to Black lives within organizations?
Every day. Yeah. I was going to answer your question actually.
Sure. Yeah.
So we get that all the time, right? Where it's either the race, right? Or it's the sexuality, right? They always want that face to identify. So what I've done in the past and what I always ask people to do is rather than say, again, you have to be, first of all, you have to be comfortable to want to do it, right? But the reality sometimes is that the organizations don't know how to go about it,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's a difference. Not that they don't want to do it, they just don't know how. Now, they then look around for, okay, we have to do something. Where do we go? So they're looking for help. So they come to you.
Yeah.
Now the problem is you also thinking, okay, why are you coming to me? Why you're coming to me because? So what I usually say to people, right, rather than say, okay, I'm not going to do it, you put it back to them and say, oh, that's interesting. I really want to do it, but I don't have X, Y, Z skills or competencies. Can you get someone from HR? Or can you get someone from, I don't know, if there's some department, some skill set you've been eyeing, right? You say, can you get someone to work with me for the next 2-3 days to teach me X, Y, Z? And I'm sure we can work together,
Yeah.
right? You will come out with something fantastic, but in the process, you would have gained new skills.
Yeah. 100%.
Right.
I like the.
Yeah,
that way of
rather than
looking
say,
at it.
okay, fine, I'll come up with something, I'll send you a statement. No, don't do that,
Yeah.
right? Go and put it back to them and say, okay, I really want to do this, but I'm not sure how to do it. Can I work with,
X, Y, and Z.
yeah.
Also,
Yeah,
ask,
I think-
ask for money as well.
That's
Well,
what.
What's the budget?
It
Yeah.
depends, right? You always have to be sensitive
drama.
to, like that. You always have to be sensitive to what's going on. But to her point, if you think there's a budget, the truth is when it comes to training you, I've had situations where we've actually sent them outside for external training and we've paid for the training and they brought them back in to do it. So don't have that hard stop and say, okay, just because I look like this means that I should be the one representing it. Look at it like, okay, how can I do this and do this well?
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
I think for me, the challenge I have is, and it touches on what you were saying, when at the height of Black Lives Matter last year, my organization was one of the organizations that put out a statement, and there hasn't been followed through. So that's issue number one for me.
Yeah.
And the second issue is we are currently in Black History Month, and I challenged the marketing director to go, aside from wanting a quote from me, what is the organization doing to recognize Black History Month? And furthermore, what are you doing to ensure that there are more Black people in the organization that are employed? So to me, it's not, I actually don't have an issue with, going, hey, I love Black History Month, and I think it's important to celebrate the people that came before me, that forged the path. It's more, what are you as an organization doing to ensure that you are really living like the truth of what Black History Month represents, rather than just putting out a quote from an account director who no one knows, right, in 1,500 people. Maybe they might know me, a few might, but people will be like, oh, okay, cool, token Black girl. You know what I mean? So for me, it was more from that. Like, where is it coming from and what would this aim to achieve? And I think that's what you're saying, is putting it back
Yeah.
to them to say,
Exactly.
what is the purpose of this? What is the bigger picture?
Yeah. A couple of years ago, not a couple, many years ago, after going through, my career, I got to a point where I went for a 1-week course in Stanford University in the US. And I think midweek, it was self-funded, and midweek into, I thought, I'm not sure why I flew thousands of miles, to come get lectured by this very nice lady that was delivering the lecture. I have friends within my network that would have taught me this for free. So back to your tribe. So I came back to the UK and I approached one of my friends and I said, okay, we have to do this, but we have to do it strategically, right? We have to come together. We all work for fantastic organizations. We bring in the best consulting firms to teach us stuff, right? So what we're going to do is once every year, so we're 4 of us, we come together and we take the best practices from our organizations and we teach ourselves. Right? We do that once every year, and then we have that accountability matrix. So we started about 7 years ago, and we're all Black women. Today, we're pretty much senior in our professions, right? In fact, one of us is a lecturer in Imperial. We have a senior director in NHS, the only Black director in NHS England. So you have to be deliberate about it, right? And it's also supporting the organizations, because what we found out every time we come together and we kind of teach and challenge ourselves, we're like, oh, you guys don't do that in your organization? No. Okay, why is that? I don't know. And then we take it back. And we have the conversation with our peers, with our colleagues, with our bosses, and like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, who's gonna do it? And everyone is looking around, and everyone looks at me. You brought the idea, why don't you, right? I'm like, why not? Because no one else is going to do it.
Yeah.
Right? So I'll do it until the point where I know I need help, right? And now it needs to go to the next level. We have to do it in incremental phases like that. You know, we have to be very intentional and deliberate about it, you know. But to your point, we can't do it alone.
Yeah.
No, and that is it,
Yeah.
right? As I said, it can be a very lonely road. I
It
remember
can be.
applying for the job that I'm at now. So it's a parent company owned by UDG, the parent company. And I remember looking at the board and it was all white men. And I thought, this is an uphill battle, you know, like, not even a woman, like even a white woman would have helped. I'm trying to go into the board as a Black woman, as a woman, this is going to be a challenge. But then I'm pleased to say the last year they do have some women on the board, so at least women is stricken off. I am determined to be the first Black woman. And I remember the executive president for the organization, he came to launch something called Career Pathways. And he picked me out in the crowd because, let's be honest, I was the only Black person. And he said, where do you want to be in your career? And I said, I'm coming for your job. And he thought I was joking. He thought I was joking. And I said, no, I'm being serious. I'm going to be the first Black president of Ashfield. He was like, whew, okay, I've got my work cut out for me. But I think you have to, I don't know about you guys, but I'm very ambitious. I'm very intentional. And if you ask me a question like that, that's the response you're going to get. I'm coming for your job.
Wherever you are, if you're in uni, if you're at work, Black people said it's really important to find your tribe, because if you are the only Black person in your organisation, it might not necessarily hold you back, and there are people that you can kind of cling to. There can be allies that will help and support and flourish you and help you to get further in your career. So I would say at uni, obviously I did have my friends who I found through ACS, and I was just like, we need to know each other for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
And then there was all of my other uni friends who were all the international students. And to this day, even though they're not in PR, they're still my tribe that I go to when I have questions. And even in terms of like broadening out who I know and how I speak to people from different cultures, that was really helpful for me to have a best friend from Lithuania and Finland, because now when I'm in an organisation which is global, I have an idea of what the business practices are in Finland, and the fact that it's dark for 23 hours a day, like it just adds a bit more spice to who you are as a person. So I would definitely say like find your tribe, and even like at Channel 4, again, for me it was comfortable to find people who were from South London. It's just what I knew, and I went to them and I was like, listen, I'm about to cry because I've been asked to do this, and this, and I don't feel like I've got the capacity to do it today. And they held me together until I was able to get through what I needed to get through. And then, you know, on the other hand, my manager was from like Hertfordshire, and she again was part of my tribe. She wasn't Black, but I found her and held on to her when I needed those, like reassurance of the balance. Yeah, so I'd say wherever you are in your journey, find your tribe of people that can reaffirm you and like uphold your values and stuff like that. And then the other thing I was going to say is, in terms of, this is moving on to a different point, but code switching. When I first started, even when I started uni, everyone called me by a nickname. No one called me Dingale, which is my full Zambian name. Like, I don't know why. I was just like, yeah, call me Dingles. I'm gonna vomit. Why not call me that? That's not my name. But I went along with it. So for the whole of uni, everyone called me Dingles. When I started work, everyone called me Dings. No one called me Dingale. And it got to a point where I was like, my name is Dingale. I don't understand what the issue is here. And I didn't have the bravado or the confidence to feel like I can go into work and then they're like, how do you say it? And I'm like, I didn't really feel like I could say that. So I was like, oh, just call me D. But now, so when I finally got this job at BAFTA, I said to my friend Izzy, I said, when I start BAFTA, I need to start with the right precedent, which is, this is how to say my name. And I think if you come from an African background, or you've got a name which people find difficult, it's not difficult where you come from. So I think one thing as well that I just wanted to, it just came to my mind, I wanted to encourage you is like, lead the front with your name and say, this is my name, this is how you say it. When HR are like, oh, I literally had a call like in HR and they were like, is there anything else we can call you? And I was just like, Dingale. You know, any nicknames? No, I don't have any nicknames. Like, and that's your identity and that's your confidence and that's your brand, who you are as a person. And one last thing that I wanted to say is like, you have so much, your expertise as a person, so where you come from, how you grew up, bring those skills to work, bring those skills to uni. No one has the perspective that you have if you grew up in Lancashire or Lincoln. You know, we might be black, but my little cousins live in Leeds or like the Midlands, and our experience is so different in terms of how we grew up. So I think lead on that as your strength and know that you have value coming into this company with the insight that you have, the perspective that you have that no one else has. Like, they literally just don't know how you can sort of solve a problem or handle things or be the person that brings people together or be the person at work drinks that has all the bants. Like, that's your superpower and your strength.
Yeah.
So I think just know that, yes, as black people, sometimes it's rough at work, but there's also so much joy and I don't know why I'm saying superpowers, it's a bit much. Like, do you know what I mean? There's so much that you've got within you, even if you're not black, like, there's so much that you've got that I don't know but I can learn from. So just lean into that. And also, if you've got a name that people think is difficult, it's not difficult. People can say Tchaikovsky, I can't say it, but that and you know that there's this meme, I can't remember, basically there's a song going around, a Somali song that everyone can sing, but you can't pronounce. No, they can pronounce your name, so just run with that.
It's so important what you say, because funnily enough, this week, I sent all my teams on Teams a message saying, hi guys, my name's Quilale. Like, can you address me as Quilale to clients? None of this Quill, like K-Dog, no. And yeah, it's important. And I was just thinking back to what you were saying. So we're both from Zambia, actually, by the way. And I remember coming to university, and I had a similar, I guess, view to you in that I met people who, I grew up in Oxford, so I sounded different to people that grew up in London. And actually, I thought, to your point, find your tribe. I was like, okay, I'm going to join ACS. And I had almost like a negative reaction because people would say to me, you don't sound black. And that hurt, actually. And they didn't realize that it hurt because I was like, what does sounding black mean? You know, like, I am black. Like, you cannot dispute that I am black. And I had to educate them, but I don't think everyone has that in them, you know, to your point, where you go through, I don't know whether it was your first 2 jobs, going Dingles, because you don't, you can't say, no, actually, my name's not Dingles.
Yeah,
I was raised very different. So I was raised by 2 psychiatric consultants, and they taught me to speak my mind. I am very straight talking. If you call me Quills and I don't like it, I will tell you that's not my name. I really appreciated when you called me last week to ask how you pronounce my name. You know, Naomi called me and she said, how do I pronounce your name? And I thought, that's fantastic. And my favorite client to this day, when I joined his account team, I found out that he had emailed my scientific director and asked her, I don't want to get her name wrong, how do I pronounce her name? And there is so much power. I wrote a little plug, I wrote a LinkedIn article on what's in a name.
And another thing that I really come to learn, like in childcare, is when a black child does come to the setting and the last name is really like difficult for people to say, and then when it comes to the register, Lillian, how do you say it again? No, that's not good enough, because now you're basically telling the child that I will say everyone's name absolutely fine, but when it gets to your name, I need support to say your name. I said, there's no need for that. And even with my name, I always, like when I started work, and when we sign stuff, someone like, oh, I'll sign it for you. Oh, what's your name again? And it's like, I will tell you, but I will say to you that it hurts. I'm a little bit offended that you don't know my name and we're working for how long. now they feel like, oh, and now the next time they'll turn around and they'll be like, Angelica? It's like, you're trying, you didn't get it right, but I can appreciate you're trying. So that's another thing, like, is to appreciate that people are making the effort and not to get upset when they get it wrong. It's just like, sorry, actually, my name is, and I'll correct you in a polite manner so that you don't come across as
No, I agree.
aggressive.
Yes,
Oh, aggressive.
I agree 100%. My parents were cruel. I mean, they called me Quilole Tristessa Vanderboom. I mean, doesn't get more complicated than that. So yeah, I think patience.
Thank you
is
so
key.
much. I think my next question that I actually wanted to ask was to you,
Okay.
which is, was it difficult for you to get to the level that you are at today? And what struggles have you faced to get to that level?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, where do I start? I would say it was challenging in some regard. Particularly, I've worked at previous agencies where, as I said, obviously I was the only black person, and when I first started, I was the only black person out of 30, and then the agency grew, and there were 120 people, and I was still the only black person. And you would think that you would stand out, but actually it had the opposite effect, where people almost forgot about me. Like when promotions came, I think I'm brilliant at what I do, guys. I really do. And so it can be very frustrating and disheartening. And I would speak to my mum about it a lot. And she would say to me, what have I always taught you? I'm like, run my own race. And she's like, yes, everything good is coming. I've had a fantastic year, by the way. Bournemouth Alumni of the Year. So yeah, it has been challenging, I would say. And also to the effect where I have been at agencies before where my white male colleagues would behave a certain way, whether it's like coming to work 30 minutes late. And I know that I wouldn't be afforded the same privilege. I don't know if it's just me putting pressure on myself, but I feel like when you work in an organization where you are the only black person, I feel like I have to represent all black people. And that's probably me just putting additional pressure on myself. But it does sometimes feel that way, because I think if I act a certain way that is not acceptable, then they'll be like, oh, we're not hiring another black person, So that has its challenges as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I mean, in terms of, even my own personal experience anyways, not necessarily, I wouldn't say in my current role, just because I feel like I have my tribe. So because I have my tribe, it does make every day just a bit more easier, if that makes sense. Because if I need to rant, I have my tribe to rant to, and we sort of push forward in that way. And but I would say in like my placement, for example, when I did my placement and I worked, I was so grateful to get a job for my placement, because it was tough to look for a job, and I felt like my portfolio was amazing. I'm not gonna lie, I felt like that portfolio was it was just great. I gave off my personality and things like that, and I think within my working space, everyone that I sat with, they all went to private schools and things like that. So there'll be like certain languages that will be used with this one particular person that was very aggressive. If me myself as a black person could even identify the aggressiveness of your tone, the languages that you're using, but yeah, I felt like I could never really use the same language or terms that she was using, because then everyone else in the office sort of laughed it out, type of thing. And I felt like within that atmosphere, I didn't have the courage to turn around and be like, oh, can I learn X, Y, and Z? Because every time when I asked a question, they made me feel like my question was very stupid, but then there will also be the same people to say no question is a stupid question. And that's why I value those that actually mean that, they mean it for what it is. And I dislike when people say no question is a stupid question, but then your action will make someone else feel a type of way, knowing that I'm coming to you, to wanting to learn, open mind and things like that. So I feel like within that workplace, it kept me very silent, because you had to believe that there's no one else that can do this job better than you, and that was my mindset 100%. Type of thing. So from what I've sort of taken on from my placement is, the importance of speaking to everyone else and giving everyone else that freedom to sort of express themselves without you having to look down on them. And that was actually one of the contracts so within my team we made a contract. on how we can work together and how we want to speak to everyone else within the organisation. And it doesn't matter if you are the person that cleans the place, we'll speak to you the same type of value as the CEO, if that makes sense. Because for me, that was a win-win for me. Like I was always going to sign that contract 100%, knowing that was a part of it, because I know what it's like, someone else speaking down on you for no absolute reason. My following question is, how have you guys handled microaggression in the workplace, if you guys have experienced microaggression?
So much to unpack. Do you know what? I think microaggressions are commonplace, unfortunately. So I think everybody will probably experience it in their lifetime, unfortunately. I've had so many, I just don't know where to start. I think initially when it would happen to me, I'd get very upset, I'd go home, I'd cry. But now I think, is this worth me getting upset about? Can I speak to someone about it? And then how do I sort of move on? One example would be when I went to an event and, networking event, and hug someone, and then at the end, I never told them what country I was from, did not mention anything, just hugged them. And then they hugged me back and they were like, that was a lovely, warm Ghanaian hug. Wait, how did we get here? I'm not even Ghanaian. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, what? I don't know how we got here, but do you know what I mean? Like, someone just assumed, number one, I was Ghanaian and that it was lovely and warm. Like, what are we doing here? So in terms of how I handle it, I usually speak to my friends, or if I feel comfortable, I might mention it to someone at work to move the situation forward. I've got so many examples that I can't actually think, but I definitely have experienced them, and I think it's not to say that you should get used to experiencing them. You should call it out when it's inappropriate. Even from someone confusing you with someone else in your team that's black, or you change your hair and someone has to comment on the fact that you've changed your hair, and it's like, oh, I didn't recognise you. Like, those things happen so often. And again, it's that thing of, do you then explain and educate that actually changing your hair as a black woman is something that we do from when we're kids, like our mums, it's a celebration, our mums have always been doing our hair. Do you go into that, or do you just say, relax? Like, what do you do? So I know I've got so many examples that I can't really think of. My mind's gone a bit blank, but I think it's just weighing up, when do I take this one forward? When do I leave it alone? This is actually borderline offensive. Did they mean it in bad taste, or was it just sort of ignorance or lack of understanding? It depends, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The one I often get, and it links back to what I had said before about, you speak really well for a black person. I normally get, your English is so good. Well, it ought to be. I grew up in this country, number one. Two, I'm from Zambia, which was colonized by Britain. Yeah. So, and thirdly, I speak 6 languages. So you would hope I'd speak them well. Yeah. That's how I handle it personally, but that's because my mum says I'm confrontational. I need to work on that. That's a whole other topic for another day. But yeah, as a person, I've been raised to not accept microaggression, no matter how small it is. Even I remember starting work and someone going, "Can I touch your hair?" And I said, "Can I touch yours?" If you want to touch my hair, cool, as long as I can touch yours too. Because at the core of it, you're highlighting my difference, and it shouldn't be about that. We're all human. And yeah, you might generally be intrigued, but if I can't touch your hair, then you can't touch mine. That's my rule. If people are fine me touching their hair, then they can touch my hair too.
Yeah. I just want to sort of ask you guys the power of understanding the policies within your organization in order for you to move up, or in order for you to get paid more. Can I give that to
HR?
HR. Oof, okay. So understanding the policies, the business practices, understanding the unwritten rules, very important, right? I was also going to say earlier on, actually, was that if you want to be the voice in your organization, it's easy. It's very easy, actually, to be the voice, right? But it's not just about being the voice. It's about being a credible voice in an organization. So I remember when I first started in the oil field, I was assigned a mentor, and I was told he was the best engineer, the best. And people would say, oh, you're lucky, you have this guy, he's the best, you know. So I went up to him and I introduced myself. He ignored me, and he said, I don't like trainees, I don't like women, and okay, I could fill in the blank, right?
Yeah.
That's fine. But my manager said, well, he's your mentor. You have to work with him. So I will go beside him and I'll be watching from a distance what he was doing. And then I started reading and reading and reading and reading. And then one day I remember I was working on some equipment. And then I didn't realize he was standing over me. And then he said, who taught you how to do that? And I looked at him and I'm like, oh. And I was scared because I didn't know, was I doing it right? Was I doing it wrong? And I said, I read about it. He's like, I think I'm gonna like you. And that was the first lesson for me. That okay, it's not about just being a trainee or a mentee. I had to be a very good one. I had to be one that will make his time worth it, basically, right? And that has been a lesson for me. So being a voice is important, but being a credible voice, right? And I always challenge all my, you know, peers, my black employees, it's good, you can make all the noise, right? But the only time they would listen to you is when you have to be the last person that has the voice. When people say, oh, okay, what does Tola have to say? And then sometimes I smile because I've been quiet, right? And I know there's somebody in the room that would say, that's good, but Tola, do you have anything to say? And I'm thinking, okay. No, Tola, if you don't say anything, then we're not leaving. That's when I see black people have more power, right? Not because they're making noise, but because what you have to say
Is worth listening to.
is what they need to listen to, right? So it's about making yourself so competent that you're almost indispensable. That's the bottom line, right? Even with all the messaging around, you know, Black Lives Matters, you know, Black History Month, what the organization is doing, it's about, excuse me, like, okay, yeah, good. She has an idea, oh my gosh. When she speaks, everybody listens. It's about that, right? It's not about, oh, what does she have to say again? Oh my gosh, okay, yeah, just
Here we
listen
go
to
again.
him. Yeah, no, it's, and I think we need to kind of switch from that, right, to making sure that when we speak a lot of sense. The business practices and policies and all of that, right? It's important that you know. Most people don't know, right? So in the before the role I'm in now, I used to be the HR projects lead for Europe, Eurasia, and Sub-Saharan Africa, and I used to travel a lot to a lot of countries. And I would go to some of the African countries and they would complain and complain about how they're not promoted and how they haven't done this and how they haven't been able to do that. And I'm like, okay, all right. Okay, have you gone online? Have you checked your competencies? Have you looked at the program? They're like, what program? Okay, have you clicked on the where? And I'm thinking, okay, that's the problem, right? So the fact that you don't know is the problem. So you have to know the business practices, you have to know all the training programs, you have to know the mission and the vision of the organization. So a few days ago, 3, 4, 5 days ago, I heard about a young man actually, someone I know very well. He was in the train station and he met, I don't know, just gonna hide the name, but someone very, very senior in an organization, CEO type person. And he approached this individual and said, oh, I know you. I listen to your blog. I do this and I do that and blah, blah, blah. And obviously the person, okay, and walked with the person for about 5 minutes. When they came to the point where this individual had to jump on the train, he now looked back at him and said, this is my card. Send me an email tomorrow. I want you to shadow all my executive meetings for the next 1 year. And I said to myself, you were ready for that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many people they speak to every day?
Mm-hmm.
You were ready for that moment. You were competently ready. You had the right conversations. You asked the right questions, right? And that's what it is.
I think my HR experiences, I've had to learn the hard way on having to read the policy and having to know, one, what I'm held accountable of. I now know, like you say, just taking the time to read the policies. The company is saying this, I am asking them to do this. The company is asking me to do this, that's not in your policy. So if I turn around, for example, you've been asked to do so-and-so, actually the policy says different, rather than me turn around and say, no, I don't want to do it. I'm holding you accountable and I'm turning around and saying, well, your policy says different, so I don't see why you're asking me to do this. And also for the situation where I was offered the role, but then I wasn't offered the role to the highest band, so I questioned it. You have advertised this, this, and this. I have given you this, this, and this. So is there any reason I have not got it? And if I haven't, could you please let me know, so how that way I can extend my knowledge. I can go and find that relevant course I don't have, or that experience or that knowledge. And HR's turned around to me and said, we'll come back to you. In a way of like, well, we need to give you a better answer than no thanks. We need to give you a reason why. I think it's also knowing, for example, if you're going to question the salary, you're going to question anything, you need to go at them with their own words. I've gone back towards them and said, well, you have said this, you have asked for this, I have provided it. Is there anything else that I'm missing?
Yeah.
In a way of like, I think younger me always went emotionally, always like handled this stuff like with my emotions, but I work really hard. And in a way of like, that's good for you, the company appreciates it, but that doesn't change anything. But now it's more of, well, actually, I know that you're capable of doing this, I know that you've asked for this, I have provided this. Yeah. So is there any reason why? Am I missing something? To turn around and say, actually, you're not, you're right, in a way of like, I've held them accountable. But I was in the same situation, it must have been a year ago, and the first salary they offered me, I took it. Knowing deep in my heart that I deserve more, but I think it was lack of confidence and lack of knowledge, knowing that actually I do have the right to dispute it, I do have the right to question it, and to ask for a reason why. But I wouldn't have known that if I didn't look into the policy, and also look into who decides things. I have spent lots of time getting to know people's roles, so that if I find myself in a situation, I know where I'm going to. I found myself in situations where I've clearly gone to the wrong people. For example, the pandemic. I never knew there was going to be a pandemic. I didn't see this company come in, and then the company have thrown policies at us, but I didn't actually know where to go to ask for help. I was a bit like, the company says I got to do, but actually I had rights that I could have gone to a union, and I could have questioned the company. But if I'm being honest, I think part of myself, just being me, I've always been told, you're getting paid, you're paying your rent, what's your problem? When actually there was way more than that.
I'm the opposite. My mum my mum taught me, from a very young age, know your worth, and it's true what you're saying about it does help to not come at it from an emotional point of view.
Yeah.
Like if there's one piece of advice I'd give you guys is, if you want more money, I'm very good at getting more money, and the way I do it is by knowing the facts, because you cannot dispute facts.
Yeah.
So I recently got promoted, as I said, and they came back with a salary which was laughable, to be honest, as a pay rise. In fact, my line manager said to me afterwards, she was like, this is hard. I said, no, it's not, it's business. I was like, let's talk. I'm like, it's not your money I'm trying to take, it's the company's money for these reasons. And if you look at, let's say, medical communications, for example, for an account director role, I was saying to her, this is the base salary. What you're coming to me at isn't even the minimum, like, base salary. And I know I'm very good at what I do. So if you want to retain my talent, which I know is great, then you need to up your offer. And they did, because it's fact, you know? You can't dispute fact.
Love that.
The thing about compensation, though, is that when you go into an organization, depending at what level you're trying to enter, right, or go into, so some organizations structure it differently. You need to know, right? So some organizations, for example, for equity, if it's like an entry level, a trainee position, they'll benchmark it the same, okay? But when you start getting into positions where they tell you it's a band, right? There's a minimum, there's a mid, and there's a max. There's some science to how they've come to that range, but where they land you on that range, right? There's no science to it, right? They're guidelines. They say, okay, if you haven't shown yourself to be competent, maybe minimum. If you are competent, maybe mid, right? If you are like really competent and you've proven it, maybe the max, right? But everything in between, you have to negotiate.
Yeah.
Okay? So you have to come with facts, knowing that the min, if you're on the min, if they're offering you the min, this is what it means, right? That you're not necessarily as competent, you haven't proven yourself. So if they make an offer to you and you say, and you kind of look, okay, where am I on that range, the min? In your head, if you didn't even know where you are on that range, you probably just accept it. But if you know you're fully competent and they make you an offer on the min, you will question it.
Yeah.
Only if you know.
Yeah.
If you don't know, the first thing you look at is like, oh, we know employees talk to each other, right? So you probably ask your friend, like, oh, where are you? And the person will probably tell you the same, like, okay, that's fine. That's not fine, right? You've literally just benchmarked yourself against someone else who had no clue either.
Exactly.
Right? So it's important, again, that you know, okay? When you know, the next thing is you have to come to the table with facts. You don't do this emotional, I'm really good. You're really good at what? What does good mean? You can throw a dart and it's the good means what? What does good mean? Good is relative, right?
Yeah.
But when you come, we don't like it because it's very uncomfortable when you come with facts, right? Because once we've made an offer to you, and then you come back and say, thank you very much for that offer. And I know that at minimum, this is what it is. At mid, this is the criteria. This is my resume.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's start talking.
Yeah.
Yeah? You make it very, very nice. But the thing you do is you've just proven to them that you're worth that extra increase.
Thank you. Exactly. My manager said the exact same thing. She
Yeah.
said, I'm going to bring you into all my negotiations because what I didn't like is my argument was when I got the job, I went in at max. When they promoted me, they tried to realign me. And their argument was, you earn more than your peers. And I said, that's a them problem. If they didn't have the competencies to negotiate a higher salary, don't try and bring me down to their level when I've worked hard to be at a higher level. So that's not a good argument to start with.
Exactly. And then also, I know you want to round up. I think this is when it comes to pay, one of the things
talk
we
about that.
know and we see is people don't negotiate their pay.
Yeah.
I think people are very shy. I don't want to be seen as someone that is only just money, money, money. Then come and do it for free then.
Yeah, exactly.
Why even bothered about, right? Now, again, if you think about how do you think people actually value your competencies? How do you know, I don't know, that job is worth 50,000? How do you think they do that? I'm asking everyone now. How do you think they come up with that number that says that job is worth 50,000? Okay, so it's how much the organization wants to pay, is willing to pay, right? So they've looked at their books, they've looked at their bottom line. If we pay this, we can still make money or whatever. Okay, how else?
It's the job market.
It's the job market. So when you say the job market, who's driving that?
Us.
It's
Yeah.
I generally believe that. I am
Yes,
driving the job market.
exactly.
I told my boss I will
Yeah.
go get another job and get the salary that I deserve.
Exactly. So people are the ones driving that, right? So we've had situations where, yes, there's a range, because you have to have, organizations have to have range and all of that for consistency's sake and equity's sake and all of that. That's fine. But then we've had situations where there's some talent that is scarce, rare, top-notch, and they walk in and they say, range. Who? Me. This is what I want. Take it or leave it. And we're like, range. Okay, forget about range. Please, just give that person what they want. And all of a sudden, that entire structure has shifted because there's a new person. Well, it doesn't always shift when it's one, but what tends to happen is you find that one, and then that one tends to attract their kind.
Yep.
Okay, who are also top-notch. And all of a sudden we find that these people are sitting outside the range, so guess what? We have to move that range, okay? So again, it comes back to you have to be top-notch, top talent at what you do. Really top-notch, right? And then you walk in there, and then you can say to them, that's fine, I
Happy to
really
give you
like
guys advice anytime.
well, please, I want this instead, okay? It's knowing the how. Again, right? Sometimes a lot of issues people have with HR is because they come and they're, they come without facts. They come and HR is like, no, okay, no. And they're like, okay, I hate HR, you know, they're not this and they're not that. But you find out that somebody else walks in through the door and they get what they want. Why? Because they've come with facts. They've come with figures, right? And the manager has said, okay, you know what? Believe me, he's really, really good. HR, I really get, but can we get an exemption? Can you go through the approval chain to get an exemption to keep this person? And we're like, okay, right? So that's the point where every single person needs to get to. And that's the information a lot of people don't have when they're in an organization, right? Again, people tend to benchmark themselves against their colleagues. That's not the way to do it.
Thank you so much. So I'm gonna open up for questions. So I see one hand's up already. I see a second one, third one, fourth one. So yeah, let's start with the first person. If you can just say your name and just speak out loud, so that way we can capture it all in the camera. Thank you.
Brilliant. My name is Lenric. I'm a master's student here at BU. Thank you so much for the panel. It was amazing. And it's really opened my eyes to a lot of things. But in terms, and this is a question I know anyone can answer. But in terms of, or in light of everything about negotiations and stuff, so you've negotiated, you've really sold yourself, you let the organisation know your worth, but you then upset some of the up above. So you now get the role, but now your experience in the job is really bad. How do you navigate that? Because yeah, you got what you wanted, but now the people that you should be reporting to, who are now your peers because of the band that you're at now, your experience is really bad. So how do you navigate that?
I can take that one if you like. I think having just recently done it, it's a fine line, right? And I hear what you're saying. But for me, the way I look at it, it's how you approach it. So we talked about not getting emotional, presenting the facts, but also there's an element where when I was negotiating, my manager said she felt uncomfortable. And I had to say to her, you know, it's business. You don't have to get uncomfortable about it. I'm not trying to take your money out of your pocket. I know the company makes a lot of money because I know their financials. So, you know, let's talk about this. And I think, I don't know, the more senior I get, at least, I think a lot of other senior people don't take it so personally. I hear what you're saying, but actually in the market that we're in now, understanding that people are very employable, the fact that you can actually come and negotiate with me at a level that means I do get what I want and you get what you want, it's a compromise. something has to give at some point. So I went ridiculously high because I don't know, that's just basics of negotiating. You go ridiculously high so that you end up where you actually want to be. So I went ridiculously high knowing that they're not going to go for that. And they went low, and then we met in the middle. So everyone feels like they're a winner. And when you do that successfully, you can continue to have a healthy working relationship because no one feels like you've taken advantage of them. That's my advice anyway.
Just disclaimer, my professional background is in mental health. So what I'm hearing, obviously, it's being back in the workplace, and there's a sort of common thread among everyone on the panel, in that you're probably the first black woman in your role. And we're talking about how to sort of navigate different things, pay, policy, racism. But what I'm not hearing is, when you're doing that effectively, competently, how are you, obviously you've got your own role that you came in to do, and then we've got this new era where people realise racism actually is a thing, and they need to address it. How do you actually look after yourself when you're supposed to be doing the job you're employed to do, but now you're finding yourself, because there's no blueprint, and you're the first black person, black man, black woman, how are you navigating that and looking after yourself whilst you're doing it? Because I think what happens a lot is we end up getting burnt out, and then that black person leaves, and then someone else has to come and start from the beginning. So I just want to ask, like, realistically, what do you guys do, any of you, to look after yourself in that sort of uphill battle?
Can I pass that question on to Quilole?
Yes, sure. For me, I think my view is probably a bit skewed. I was raised by 2 psychiatric consultants, as I said, so mental health is something that's very important to me, and speaking my mind, for one, living by truth. So they're normally my first, port of call. If I feel like things are getting too much, if I feel like I'm taking on, Mama often says I take on too much. As Jonathan knows, I also, as well as my full-time job, guys, I run a charity for children with HIV in Zambia. So my mum often worries that I'm taking on too much. I'm trying to change the world in every sense of the word. And it can get exhausting, to be honest, because you're wanting to make everything better for everyone. And oftentimes, for me personally, it helps to go to my parents because I know they are psychiatric consultants, and that is really their job, right? At the end of the day, if they can't help me, I don't know who can. So they definitely help. But I have really good friends as well who are good. You're talking about tribes. I formed some friendships from Bournemouth University who I'm still in touch with now. And if I'm going through anything challenging in life, then I can talk to them. They're a good sounding board as well.
Thank you very much. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I was just wondering, for people who don't have parents, that's a blessing, honestly.
Yeah.
I just wondered, on a sort of normal scale, for people who don't have the access, because obviously in mental health, we are the highest, in terms of black women, the highest number of percentage of people who need access for mental health services for depression and anxiety, and yet actually we're the least served, and we don't access services. So I'm trying to understand that balance. If we don't access statistically services, and yet we're the most likely to experience those mental health problems, in a professional setting, practically, is it the company or the organisation who should offer that support because they're aware that you're the first person in the role and you're leading in a space that they're not familiar with, a territory that no one else has sort of ventured in before? Whose responsibility is it for you to be able to look after yourself whilst you're doing that?
Anyone can answer this question?
Yeah, I can. So, that's a very good question. And I would not be honest with you if I said I had the answer. In fact, it's a food for thought for me, and I'm going to put it on my to-do list for tomorrow. Because I have quite a number of firsts, including myself. And I do challenge my leadership team every time. So we set up policies, we set up business practices, we do stuff around employee assistance programs, and we ask about the utilization of things, but we never actually ask here who has used it, who's supporting who. It's not something that, it's like we take care of everyone else, but nobody takes care of us, right? thing though is you need to really enjoy what you do. Every job is stressful. Doesn't matter if you're black or green or white or every job is stressful, right? I think if you don't enjoy what you do, that's one. If you don't have a supervisor if you don't like your supervisor, that's another, right? And that exists anyway, irrespective of race.